A Russian Cerna-class landing craft, 85 feet long and running at a steady 30 knots, sliced through the calm like a knife, completely unaware it was being watched. On board were over 24 troops, most likely special operators, packed into the deck like cargo. From the outside, it looked like a routine amphibious movement. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But that was the point. Russia didn't want anyone to notice. No escort ships, no air cover, just silence and momentum. What they didn't know was that, for the last 27 minutes, an unblinking eye in the sky had locked onto them. 18,000 feet above, a Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drone had them painted in infrared, watching every move, every ripple, every heat signature on that deck. Back on the ground, in a dimly lit control room that looked more like a gamer's den than a war room, a Ukrainian operator leaned into his screen. The mission had been quiet, so far routine surveillance, long hours of scanning empty sea, but that was about to change. In less than 2 minutes, a seemingly minor patrol would become a major turning point in the war. What began as just another movement under cover of darkness would end in fire, debris, and the sudden collapse of a carefully planned Russian operation. The sea was silent, but war was coming, and it was already watching. The Russian landing craft had no idea that 2 hours earlier, at precisely 2 a.m., a silent predator had already taken to the skies. From a hidden launch site just outside Mykolaiv, a Bayraktar TB2 drone lifted off under the cover of darkness, its Rotax 912 engine humming softly as it climbed to 18,000 feet above radar range, but close enough to see everything. This wasn't some off-the-shelf commercial quadcopter. The TB2 was Turkey's answer to the American Predatora lethal fusion of surveillance and strike capability. It wasn't built for speed. It cruised at just 80 miles per hour. But speed wasn't the mission tonight. Patience was. Its flight path wasn't direct. The TB2 wove a complex route, carefully calculated to stay at least 30 miles away from known Russian S-300 air defense zones. Ukrainian drone crews had learned the hard way. Getting too close meant turning a $5 million aircraft into scrap. Not tonight. At cruising altitude, the drone's Westcam MX-15D sensor, a high-end Canadian thermal optical system, went to work. In full infrared, the sea below became a black canvas where every warm object glowed like firelight. The TB2 settled into its patrol, a turn-along rectangular box of sky, 25 miles long, 12 wide, perfectly placed to watch the maritime approaches to Kherson. Inside the control station, the Ukrainian operator barely moved, eyes locked on his screen, switching between thermal and visual feeds every few minutes. He'd done this 100 time showers of quiet, waiting for seconds that matter. And tonight, those seconds had come. The hunter had found its prey, and it wasn't letting go. At 3:47 a.m., after nearly 2 hours of scanning empty sea, something moved. On the thermal display, a bright white smear appeared against the cold black canvas of the Black Sea, a heat signature, cutting westward at roughly 35 miles per hour. The Ukrainian operator leaned forward, zooming in. The shape sharpened. This wasn't a fishing boat. This was military. The TB2 sensors locked on, and within seconds, the image resolved into something unmistakable. A Project 11,770 Cerna-class landing craft. 85 feet of Russian steel. Low profile, shallow draft, built to hit beaches fast and unload troops or armor. But this one wasn't alone. Trailing behind, spaced evenly about 3 miles apart, were 2 more vessels, both riding low in the water. The operator quickly tagged them, forming a picture that was anything but routine. This wasn't a patrol. This was a convoy. The TB2's high-resolution optics revealed more. Hotspots on the deck, dozens of them uniformed figures packed tight, moving with purpose. The operator counted at least 30 visible, possibly more below deck. Their outlines were clear. Tactical vests, helmets, rifles slung tight. These weren't sailors. These were combat troops. And something else, unusual crates strapped along the gunwales. Not standard shipping containers. Whatever this was, it wasn't a standard troop transport. It smelled like an insertion op. The Cerna was maintaining a steady course heading straight for a stretch of beach just 5 miles west of Khersonin, a location Ukrainian ground units had flagged last week for suspicious night activity. The TB2 continued to track all 3 vessels, documenting every second in crystal clear 4K. The drone didn't blink. Neither did the operator. This wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was the opening scene of something much bigger. The longer the TB2 tracked the convoy, the clearer the picture became. And it wasn't just alarming, it was strategically calculated. The lead Cerna-class boat was heading directly for a stretch of coastline that Ukrainian forces had flagged days earlier. Not just a beach, but a potential infiltration corridor west of Khersonin, where strange radio bursts and night activity had already raised red flags. But it wasn't the destination that raised alarms, it was the formation. The 3-vessel convoy moved in a pattern designed to spread out and confuse observers. The lead boat held course toward shore, but the 2 trailing boats began to drift apart, gradually veering north, the other south. It was a textbook maneuver, a pincer setup, commonly used in covert amphibious insertions. A landing in the center, flanking support on both sides. By the time defenders figured it out, it would be too late. Inside the drone operations center, Ukrainian commanders watched the real-time feed unfold. This was no routine patrol. This was a Black Ops team, slipping in under darkness, likely aiming to sabotage radar sites, supply depots, or communications hubs inland. Then came the hardest decision: engage now, or wait and preserve secrecy. Up until this moment, no one outside top-level Ukrainian command knew the TB2S had eyes this far south deep in contested Russian-monitored waters. Striking now would expose their capabilities, their tactics, and their presence. But letting the landing happen, that could cost lives, infrastructure, morale. After just seconds of deliberation, the order came down: engage now. They knew the cost of giving away their reach. But tonight, the value of stopping whatever was coming outweighed every secret they might lose. The hunter was off the leash. The trap had been sprung. The call came in at 4:15 a.m. 3 words that changed the course of the mission. Cleared to engage. In the operations center, the TB2 operator didn't flinch. His hands moved fast, punching in the attack protocol. The drone broke from its patrol loop and began a wide bank to the left, sliding into a tailing position behind the convoy. The Cerna-class lead vessel was still holding steady at 30 knots, about 9 miles from shore, completely unaware of what hovered 3.4 miles above. This was the moment. The kill chain was live. The operator queued up a MAM-L Smart Micro-Munitiona 48-pound missile with a 22-pound warhead designed for precision hits on light armor. The TB2's semi-active laser designator locked onto the Cerna's bridge. But then, suddenly, everything froze. A red warning blinked across the screen. Laser malfunction. Recalibrate. Panic wasn't an option, but adrenaline hit hard. The missile required a steady laser lock to home in. Without it, the shot was useless. The operator cycled the system classic reboot. From battlefield to desktop. 10 seconds of system check felt like 10 minutes. Finally, laser operational. As he reset the target, something odd caught his eye. The deck was packed too tightly more than just troops. And those crates strapped to the gunwales? Not supply boxes. The troops themselves wore non-standard camo, darker, tighter cut, no unit markings. This wasn't a regular landing party. He zoomed in. These weren't naval infantry. These were Black Ops, saboteurs. The Cerna wasn't bringing reinforcements. It was hauling destruction thermite, explosives, possibly EMPs, designed to vanish once the mission was done. But tonight, they'd been seen, and now they'd be stopped with fire. At 4:47 a.m., the TB2's payload bay opened with a mechanical snap. A MAM-L Smart munition, weighing just under 50 pounds, dropped silently into the cold morning air. Its fins snapped into position as it began its guided descent, accelerating toward the target at nearly 820 feet per second. Time to impact: 43 seconds. On the drone operator's screen, the Russian landing craft filled the frame. The TB2's 15x optical zoom caught every detail in crystal clear 4K. Troops lounging on deck, smoking, laughing, some leaning against crates, others checking gear. No one was looking up. They didn't know this was it. Their last cigarette? Their last sentence? The laser designator held steady on the vessel's bridge, the guidance beam invisible to the naked eye, but locked like a sniper's scope. The missile's onboard seeker followed it in, perfectly aligned. At 4:48, the MAM-L struck dead center, right between the upper deck and bridge. The explosion ripped through the Cerna-class hull, a blinding white flash, followed by a bloom of fire. Steel plates peeled back like paper. Debris rained into the sea. But what came next was not expected. 1.3 seconds later, a second explosion, brighter, sharper, and white, erupted from the center of the wreck. Not fuel, not ammo. It was different. It was thermite, the signature burn of demolition charges cooking off. The operator's heart rate spiked. Ukrainian command leaned in. This wasn't just a troop transport, it was a sabotage vessel, rigged for destruction. The TB2 circled overhead, camera steady, recording everything. Crates floated in the firelit water, some marked with Cyrillic codes. The Russians had tried to sneak destruction onto the shore. Instead, they found it falling from the sky. As the fire from the impact lit up the Black Sea, the truth rose with the smoke. Floating in the wreckage were black waterproof cases, bobbing in the waves, torn from the burning hull. The TB2's camera zoomed in. Cyrillic lettering covered the surfaces. Some were half melted. Others were split open, revealing canisters, wiring, shaped charges. It wasn't a troop transport. It was a floating weapons lab. Among the debris, distinct white-hot flares of thermite continued to burn, each one a chemical fingerprint of a demolition charge. This wasn't accidental secondary combustion. This was a designed chain reaction, meant to destroy infrastructure, not defend it. The kind of loadout used to disable power grids, radar towers, bridge not fight on a beach. From orbit, satellite imagery confirmed what the TB2 sensors had already shown. The other two Russian vessels had turned hard away, fleeing at maximum speed toward Crimea. No recovery efforts. No mayday calls. No attempt to save their comrades. Just silence and retreat. Ukrainian intelligence intercepted emergency burst transmissions, scrambled and rushed. Minutes later, encrypted channels lit up again, this time with a total stand-down order from Russian command. Within 6 hours, all special ops traffic near Kherson went dark. Within 1 day, satellite overpasses captured the complete withdrawal of Russian covert assets from the area. For 7 days, the Black Sea remained eerily calm. What had been meticulously planned over months had collapsed in less than 90 seconds. Not because of a firefight, not because of a leak, but because a drone saw too much, and because Ukraine chose to act. This wasn't just a failed missionette, it was a message. We see you, we know, and next time, we won't wait to pull the trigger. In just 90 seconds, a Russian special operations mission planned in secrecy for months was erased from existence. No firefight, no boots on the ground. Just one drone, one missile, and the cold precision of a silent operator who never left his chair. What Ukraine destroyed that morning wasn't just a Cerna-class landing craft. It was a layer of Illusiona carefully constructed veil of deniability that Russia had hoped would mask its intentions in the western Black Sea. The crates weren't for resupply, the troops weren't for defense, and the mission wasn't about occupying ground. It was sabotage, plain and simple. And it failed before it ever touched shore. The Bayraktar TB2, once dismissed as a cheap alternative to Western drones, proved it wasn't just a flying camera with a warhead. That morning, it became a scalpel, slicing straight into the heart of a covert Russian operation. But it also became a mirror, forcing the Kremlin to face something it rarely sees: the quiet, humiliating collapse of a plan exposed too soon. And perhaps most importantly, it sent a message far beyond the shoreline of Kherson, to NATO, to Moscow, to anyone watching. Modern warfare is no longer about the loudest guns, but the smartest eyes. One unmanned platform, flying above radar, saw what needed to be seen, and acted faster than any general could have imagined.